Yo, what is good YouTube? Warstu here with another video on the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, there's a very interesting book that's come out called The MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios. And it gives you a massive insight into what is coming in the future of the MCU and why certain things have happened the way they have happened throughout the last few phases and really through phase 4 and the current phase. Very freaking interesting. So, if you're new around here, what are you doing? Make sure to subscribe before you do anything. Comment down below what the freaking hell's going on with Marvel. Are you a Marvel fanboy? Are you hating Marvel? Just tell me down below what the freaking hell's wrong with Marvel. Because at the moment, Ant-Man 3 did just under $500 million. The projection for the Marvels, which is essentially Captain Marvel 2, it's projected to make less money than Ant-Man. It's projected to do so bad. But the queen of the Marvel Universe, Brie Larson's in it. What is going on? Let me know down below. So if you could, check us out on Instagram at Warstu to see the beautiful face behind the beautiful voice. Also check us out on x.com, aka Twitter. Elon Musk, get your freaking act together and change it all to x.com. So people can stop saying, I don't know what to call it. Is it Twitter? Is it X? We don't know because they haven't changed the freaking handle properly. The logo on the app says X, but the website's still twitter.com. What the freaking hell do you call it? So let's break it down. So obviously there is a book out called The MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, essentially about Kevin Feige and parts about Bob Iger and where Marvel is going and where it's been. And it's very interesting. I may even pick the book up, maybe, but I watched a video that was over an hour long and some very interesting insights about why things happen the way they happen. And the most interesting thing for me is Kevin Feige, who is one of the most influential, he's had the biggest impact in Hollywood is, careful spoilers, he's not a comic book guy, let's be honest. He knows nothing about comics. So this whole narrative that you've got to be a comic book guy to build a cinematic universe in the comic book movie space is absolute nonsense. So, like I keep saying, I've got nothing against James Gunn, but the fact he's a comic book guy doesn't mean anything. I always thought Feige was a comic book guy, not at all. And in fact, in this book, although I kind of got the information from watching this video, he was actually more into Star Wars than he was Marvel, which is so freaking fascinating. So, as you know, they reshot the whole of Doctor Strange 2. And I always thought it was weird because they literally did, I think it was like 10 weeks of reshoots. And it was fascinating why they did it. So it turns out that apparently the whole reason it was rewrote on the fly was because the Spider-Man movie was initially thought was going to be coming out before due to Sony essentially being Sony. Very interesting. So I'm just going to go over a few notes that I've come across. So apparently Robert Downey Jr. is a huge diva behind the scenes. Who would have thought he's a huge diva behind the scenes? So Black Panther and Black Widow movies weren't done earlier in the MCU because the creative team didn't think the push plastic Feige wanted Black Widow and Black Panther from the beginning. There's a lot of interesting insights in what is coming and what is being in this book. Quantumania and Secret Invasion really shook Marvel internally. You don't need a book to tell you this. They actually thought Ant-Man 3 was going to bang and people were going to love it. And this was very concerning when people didn't because it meant their internal bromia was completely off. So I don't like to be negative, but Marvel have missed quite a few times recently. They missed. I mean, I think Ant-Man 3 was a good movie still, but it could have been a lot better. And the fact that Kang got destroyed, a lot of people think Kang the Conqueror's destroyed. He's not, but you got to sell the story to the general audience, not to the people that invest their actual time into these kind of things. And the whole Secret Invasion, although I think Emilia Clarke as Gia, I think she was very cool. It could have been better. Luckily, Loki season 2 is pretty good, but it could have been much better in the sense of there was supposed to be a whole multiversal war taking part, but it was taken out. So there's a scene in episode 1 or 2 where you see an image with lots of different Kangs fighting each other. So Den of the Geek, which is a website, spoke to the Loki executive producer Kevin Wright about season 2 and learned that in earlier plans they were going to have a full-on multiversal war that was going to take place during the season. As we know, the incursions are happening, they've already started to happen, and everything's building to a full-on multiversal war. But why didn't they put it in Loki season 2? It makes no sense. And also it's pretty cool. I didn't know this. This is something I found while I was making this video. Tom Hiddleston has a producer credit But season 1 and season 2 of Loki, that is pretty cool. So initially season 2 was meant to be released before Ant-Man Quantumania, which would have changed the plans drastically, switching the order of the MCU timeline. But according to Wright, going fully into a multiversal war felt completely wrong, noting that this particular storyline didn't feel earned now as they removed it from Loki season 2. In one version, we go full-on multiversal war. But even as we were saying that, it felt completely wrong jumping to something we hadn't earned. I mean, that's kind of, it makes sense, but we will see the multiversal wars essentially being shown from now on to Secret Wars in a roundabout way, because we know we're going to get some form of multiversal war in Deadpool 3, because we know there's going to be alternate universes. The Deadpool 3 director has basically already confirmed that the Fox universe is in play. Interesting. There's also the Fantastic Four, which could tie to everything. There's also Kang's Dynasty. We know that we're going to have some kind of incursion in the Marvel's Captain Marvel 2, which it's not a multiversal war, sure, but it's all got to build up to that. But it's a big L that Loki season 2, Loki season 2 is very good, but it could, should, and could have been so much better. So there's a lot of interesting bits of information that came out. So everyone's been saying that Secret Wars is going to be a soft reboot for the MCU, and after that we're going to get the X-Men saga, the Cosmic Saga, and everything, because they did trademark them specific titles. Now what's interesting is, and I don't think this is good, past characters could return, basically saying people like T'Challa, Tony Stark, and Steve Rogers. So basically throwing out what didn't work in Phase 5 and Phase 4, I guess you could say, and putting back in what did work. But that does not mean that it's going to be Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, Steve Rogers, Chris Evans, etc. I believe what they mean by this is they're going to bring back the fan favorites in the character, because it's the character that's the favorite, not specifically the actor, although in this situation it would be the actor. But I do expect them all to be there, essentially. So the author basically says she believes there's going to be basically a soft reboot. They have a break glass in case of emergency in Feige's office. She wouldn't be surprised if we didn't at least see one of the original Avengers back for Secret Wars, probably a variant. So what is interesting here is the author of this book, The Reign of Marvel Studios, is Joanna. She's not speaking like some kind of Twitter wannabe scooper who's looking for ad revenue on Twitter. She's speaking from personally talking to people at Disney, talking to Feige's team, and talking to Feige. So she's talking more hands-on. It's not like, yo, everyone's returning for Secret Wars. Okay, we know that. But there's a difference from saying they're returning and her going, she believes at least one character will return. And that's pretty cool, but I hope it makes narrative sense. And it shouldn't just be the case where our Tony Stark returns, our Steve Rogers returns, our etc. and so on, Black Widow, etc. return. It's got to make narrative sense, and that's the problem when a story doesn't make narrative sense. Now, the bit here that, I know it's based on interviewing stuff and doing a bunch of research, but I think this bit here is a bit convoluted. So the Sony Spider-Man universe will be part of the MCU canon. I don't believe that for 1 minute. Now, we went over a leak stroke report the other day that said Tom Holland's Spider-Man will be the chosen one from the main MCU continuity to go to Battle World for Secret Wars, etc. Now, the problem with this part here is it can only be canon of the MCU if Sony Pictures allow that, because as we know, Sony owns the rights when it comes to the movie universe to Spider-Man and all the Spider-Man villains. So it would be cool if it was all part of the MCU canon and it was all part of one universe. But then at the same time, they can't have their independent movies, although Venom does technically connect back to the MCU because of what happened in No Way Home, so on and so forth. It would take away the independent side of, Beyond the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, being part of its own universe. Sure, they could connect everything to the MCU, but does it need to connect to the MCU? I don't know. So essentially what the book is saying, although I watched the video format, is a fresh coat of paint basically will be put back on the MCU, and the fact that Marvel internally are very aware that they can he mess anything up. Now, it's interesting when it went on to say Feige's approach to not rushing the X-Men, not rushing the Fantastic Four, because they know there has to be perfect for the Fantastic Four and the X-Men post Avengers Secret Wars, or else they're in freaking trouble. So when we get all these reports and trades going, and the actual director for Fantastic Four going, yeah, we've casted everyone, and once the active strike's over, we're going to reveal the cast. You haven't casted the Fantastic Four members at all. You think you have, but like from a contract point of view, no one, I mean, the agents can negotiate, she's cool, but no pen has come to paper. So they haven't actually said anything in terms of officially, because Feige knows, and obviously Feige worked on the original X-Men over at Fox, they can't mess it up because they have so much potential with the X-Men and with the Fantastic Four. They can literally have a whole phase just with them characters if they realistically want to do that. Sure, there will be certain Fantastic Four members and X-Men members potentially appear. Okay, we know someone will appear X-Men-wise in the Deadpool 3 movie, but we know, and we've had John Krasinski's version of Reed Richards during Doctor Strange 2. We know eventually both these IPs will be appearing properly. Outside of, these are universes that are most likely going to be crushed. If you've seen the most recent... Okay, let's be careful I don't talk about episode 3 or 4 of Loki. If you've seen episode 2 of Loki and you see what happens at the end of that, it's clear that a lot of different branches or universes, however you want to call it, it's all going to crush and come crumbling down. It's all going to end into one essential timeline. And maybe, I don't know, got to be very careful how I word this because I don't want to give any spoilers for episode 3 and 4. But I think it's cool that they are being very careful. And we don't need X-Men or the Fantastic Four currently. That's why they're using the Fox Universe X-Men within Deadpool 3, which is pretty cool. People weren't ready for the multiverse. They went in too hard and too fast. That's a really good line. Yeah, people weren't ready for the multiverse. The problem is multiverse stories are kind of basic in a roundabout way because multiverse stories have been around for so many years. I think they really approached it wrong with having Kang being killed in Ant-Man 3, and then they changed the post-credit scene, ending really late into production, basically a month before the movie came out. They rushed a lot of things. I don't know what really went wrong. Yeah, so it's a pretty interesting insight. So the same interview, because I've got my information from it, from listening to a video, is they basically went on to say that Wonder Man is going to be cancelled. And this is where the initial information came from, with Daredevil being retooled. Retooled is a much better word because they filmed too much. They're not going to scrap 4 episodes. I mean, if you actually do your research and listen to what these quotes are actually saying, they're not scrapping everything. They are essentially retooling things. So it also went on to say the way that Kevin Feige is going to essentially do a soft reboot is that's not a Loki-ism. Prune everything that's not working. Just keep what is working. Or bring back people you thought were gone forever. I don't think they're going to bring back. They can't afford to bring back Robert Downey Jr. full time. And it would really ruin how he went out if that was what they were planning to actually do. So in terms of the Daredevil stuff, I know people aren't really bothered, but it said this in an interview. This is the Hollywood Report. I know it sucks, but the context is still good. Marvel plans to keep some scenes and episodes, though other elements will be injected. So they're basically retooling it. I hate when people try and break stuff down and they do it so wrong and they miss the freaking context of what was said. So many reports about Daredevil have got the context so wrong to the point where I'm thinking, did this person even read everything, or are they just going off what they think they said? Because most of the people breaking it down actually got some stuff wrong. So what's fascinating is Echo is not going to come out for such a long time. The same with Ironheart. Echo, they should just scrap it because based on this video and this book, Echo is probably going to be terrible. But that's just the person's opinion because Marvel is going to binge drop everything over Thanksgiving. It was supposed to connect to Daredevil, but now Daredevil has been scrapped and is starting over. She is very enthusiastic for Agatha's show, but she might end up eating her own words. So although it's based on interviews and knowing people and talking to people inside Marvel and Disney internally, it is also opinion-based as well. But it's not like Twitter sphere wannabe scoopers throwing out going everything because let's just see how much they got wrong for Deadpool 3. Already the amount of, Wanda's in it, she's not in it, she's out, she's in. So I find all this stuff fascinating and the book is fascinating. I may get round to buying the book at some point, but we have broken down essentially the main points. And it's also interesting that Thanos was never going to be the plan in the MCU, and Thanos was never the plan. So everyone keeps saying that Feige had this master plan where realistically, if you've looked into everything, Feige didn't have any freaking plan. He's not a comic book nerd. And maybe that's the real reason why the Marvel Cinematic Universe was so popular. I say was in past tense because it's not exactly popular at the moment based on Ant-Man 3, based on Secret Invasion. Loki's numbers are very good, although there's a lot of people on the internet misleading it and going, the Loki show's not... No, Loki's numbers are very high. So just because you're a comic book nerd does not mean you can run a cinematic universe. So like always, guys, check us out on Instagram at Warstu. Check us out on Twitter, Warstu G, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.